Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we're going to talk a lot of Saints. We'll touch on the LSU Tigers and the Tulane Green Wave. But we've got a great panel for you tonight. Corey Johnson of WGSO 990 AM and Brian Allee Walsh of SportsNolan.com. Gentlemen, and I do use that term loosely, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, E.
Guys, we always like to start off letting folks know a little bit about what's going on. Corey, tell you what, radio on TV, TV on radio, and then TV. Tell the folks a little bit about what's going on with your shows.
I picked up this shift in gentility with Richard's Disposal, Eric, and I'm picking up the St. Rock route.
You got the St. Rock route?
Leave an apple out on the garbage can because I'm in your neighborhood every Thursday and Friday.
At least it's a 2-day pickup.
Exactly. Brian's driving the truck.
There you go.
No, I'm throwing garbage in the back. That's my job.
And I'm the guy with the shovel. Anything you guys miss is on the street. Tell the folks a little bit about your show.
Eric doing radio every afternoon, 3 to 5 on 990 AM, and also simulcast on Cox Channel 4 television, which is nice. Kind of a talk radio show on TV,
it's very
too.
Cool.
And doing editorials on Channel 26 3 days a week. So
check them out.
Still living the dream, I guess.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Brian, SportsNolan.com, and a long list of other things. Tell us about it.
SportsNola.com. Kenny Trahan is ramrodding that group and doing a great job. In fact, we've just changed the look of the website. Check it out. It's very reader friendly. WHNO TV, we're starting that back up around the end of August on Channel 20 with our panel of Torrance Small and Ricky Jackson and Kenny Trahan as a moderator. I'm writing NFC South for USA Today Sports Weekly. And then also stringing for the Advocate out of the New Orleans Advocate, I might add.
Beautiful.
So,
thank you, John Georges.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Great competition.
Yes, no doubt.
It is nice.
Guys, Saints reported to camp. Tomorrow is the first practice. I guess the first question out the box is, Greenbrier is obviously a beautiful resort. It's not exactly going to be a Spartan environment for the Saints as they go forward. They got a 3-year deal there. They think they're going to work the kinks out this season, but expect to be there 3 years and maybe beyond. Obviously, the temperatures are going to help them, but a lot of distractions with again, the resort going on. Take you first, Corey. How do you think this affects this team going up to Greenbrier instead of being in the heat and humidity of New Orleans?
I mean, strictly that, Eric, it's obviously a plus. You get out of the heat and the humidity of New Orleans, and I think that's good. Team camaraderie, being isolated for 3 weeks in one place. Maybe the team gets tighter, more cohesive. We could take a legal pad, draw a line, pros and cons of going out of town for camp, staying in town. You brought up a good point about it's a 3-year deal. Wouldn't be shocked if they extend it longer. Wouldn't be shocked if they don't go back. I mean, Sean Payton just does whatever he feels like doing year to year. He makes the right choices most of the time. He's a pretty cutting-edge coach, about 50 years old in the prime of his career. So going to Oxnard, California, or going to Hammond or Thibodaux, or staying at the Finks facility on Airline Drive in Metairie, or going to the Greenbrier, it's I think the guy makes the most of it, and it seems like it's kind of a trendy thing. Sometimes it's good to go away, sometimes it's not. Ask this guy. He's spent over a year in La Crosse, Wisconsin, covering the Saints.
You poor thing.
It was a wonderful year, I might add. I think it was 12 or 13 season. You're right, Corey. You know what? I agree totally with what you're saying regarding Sean Payton. He's got a finger on the pulse. He's talked about it's a good change-up, if you will. Look, I don't see any negatives with this. I really don't. He feels, and they made this. Here's the thing that I'm just so curious about. How in the world do you convince the Greenbrier Resort to put $30 million into a facility?
And the state of West Virginia.
Absolutely. You know what? I say outstanding. You know, even if the Saints stay 3 years and don't go any, there will be another club there. There, you know, Greenbrier's. This is a great investment. This is a great business decision.
Well, how about this guy that owns the Greenbrier?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to say smart move now, but I think just a few years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, he bought it for like $30 million.
Yeah.
I mean, last week I'm watching the Greenbrier PGA Tour stop.
Absolutely.
So I'm like, okay, I mean, the TPC of Louisiana was $30 million, and there's a PGA tournament there. They're about to build something in City Park and maybe move the tournament there. He buys the whole Greenbrier resort, and the golf court's just part of it. And then the guy's so smart and savvy, he's like, let me lure an NFL camp here. And I forget the team, but it wasn't really originally the Saints.
Yeah.
I think the guy was trying to get the Redskins or Carolina
that would be the closest one.
And then I think, you know, Peyton has that connection with the girlfriend, I think, from West Virginia. And he went there, and then he liked the facility, and I guess the ball got rolling. But this guy doesn't mess around. Dumps all this money in, what, about 100 days, builds the facility?
Yes.
It's only going to get better.
It really was about 100 days. At one point, they were talking about the facility 90 days ago. This thing wasn't even built.
You talk 3 practice fields, a facility that'll be, I'm sure, second to none. Going back to the distraction, I don't think it'll be a football distraction at all, okay? You know, this is a younger team than he's had in the last few years, okay? So I guess there might be that chance for distraction, but I really don't think so. They sense that this could be one of those great years, and I don't think they're going to let the Greenbrier stand in the way of them achieving their goals.
Yep.
My only concern, if there is one, again, camp is about breaking the team down and then bringing them together. You know, like I mentioned, it's not a Spartan environment. Normally you get into a situation like you guys when you went to lacrosse, you know, it was bare bones, wasn't a lot to it. They're going to a resort. There are some distractions there. Obviously, they'll be focused on football. And as you mentioned, Brian, it is a younger team. You've got some veteran guys there, but this is kind of their first foray into this. It's going to be interesting to see, again, how the leadership of the team handles this and how the coaching staff handles the team to make sure they're focused on what's at hand. But from an ability to be able to recover from injury, to recover from the day's practice. Obviously, being in that climate is much better than being here in New Orleans.
You know, I know there's a little upheaval about from the local, the citizenry here, if you will, Who Dat Nation doesn't like their beloved people, their football team moving out, taking it out of state. Look, they'll be back, okay? And the upshot of this is that they're going to prepare this team when they do come back. They'll be able to handle any kind of weather. And look, we all know what this weather's like in this part of the country in August, right? All I can tell you is there's probably more chance of a hurricane hitting while they're gone than it is when they're home. So we'll see what happens.
Well, you know, one other point, again, to your point. There was a tremendous amount of state dollars that were poured into that facility, indoor facility, building facility, to the specs the Saints wanted. And the trade-off there was stay in camp, have your camp in town, so we can get the economic benefits of it.
And we've contributed enough to the community. We're going to do what we want. You know, I think, you know, that's
Who
what.
was that?
I think Benson's kind of.
I'm not sure. Who was that?
That was my bad Tom Benson.
I got you.
That's why I was doing the suspenders. I was trying to get the suspenders going.
It is an issue. It is an issue because now Greenbrier's put that money in there, and again they'll be splitting the camp.
Well, you know
what?
You know it's going to be for 3 years. Okay, you know that. That's a given. Okay, I sense that the way that you can appease everyone is you come back here and do it.
They do.
You know,
They do.
And
They're going
will.
20 days up there, and they're doing about 12 the end of camp here.
But I'm saying make it good. You know, make it stay here. Like, you know, in year 4 from now.
Well, I think, you know, they might. They might. I mean, that's why I was saying there's no guarantee. I don't think Peyton's like this is the ultimate solution. I think
I got something for you. I don't think you'll see Sean Payton here in year 4. That's my.
You mean here coaching?
I mean coaching with the Saints. I don't think he'll be here in year 4 from here.
Really?
Yeah, I really don't. So that would be 14, 15, 16.
Now that would be disappointing in this regard.
I'm just saying.
You ride the Drew Brees horse, and then when that's gone, you bail and go to Dallas.
I'm not saying that's that. I'm not saying it's Drew Brees necessarily. I'm not saying. But I think this man has other interests, you know. And I remember we had a conversation
outside of coaching, Brian. Do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think. I definitely think. I don't think he's going to be the kind of guy.
Every Saints fan that's watching this just went and called their local hospital.
Yeah.
Well, they're having a heart attack.
What do I know?
I want to see the post Drew Brees, Peyton, like what he does with another QB, because I think this guy's a pretty cutting edge coach, and You don't wish that to happen,
Yeah.
but it eventually will.
Well, how long do you think Breeze is going to play? How long do you think he realistically can play? He'll be 36 in January.
Well, I like saying this on the radio, real reporters, real reports, and it's fine, the station down the dial that has the rights. I mean, I guess if I pay millions, I'm probably going to be the station of the team.
Right.
Kind of be us and we and appease and all that. If you listen to those guys, I'm sure they're saying Breeze will play 5 more seasons. Like, so many NFL quarterbacks have played at 39, 40, 41 and were effective. I mean, how many that are effective in the history of the league? 39, 40, 41. That were effective. It might be 3 or 4. Maybe.
But we're in a different era in
No,
terms
we
of
are.
nutrition,
We are.
taking care of your body.
There's no doubt.
You've got guys like Brady. You've got guys like
And look at those
Manning
guys. Look at Manning. You think Manning's playing at 41 or 42 or Brady?
But
These guys are right at the end.
3 years, guys.
I would say 3 years.
I think 3 is good.
I would say,
Well, he's 35, so that's 38.
Drew takes care of himself, and as long as he keeps the mindset, and he's a competitive guy, okay? Whatever he does, he's competitive. I say 3 years is a good ballpark figure. I really do.
Yeah, that's my whole point. I think going into this, most folks want to think 39, 40, 41
Hey,
he'll be
there's
around.
that possibility.
Sure. That's what I love about it. There's a possibility. You might have a Steve DeBerg or a Woodley or someone that can play a long time. But I think most of these guys, they've made the money, they've done their thing. I think Breeze is a guy who'll have other interests, won't want to get beat up in the league at 39, 40. So I think 3 years and not dropping off much. Probably bail like a Barry Sanders, like please, or Elway. Boy, you could play another year and still be good.
As long as, in this environment with this team, they did a great job. I know we're going to. They did a great job of getting this team younger.
Yes.
In a short period of time.
But by accident.
And not diminishing their chances to succeed.
Not sacrificing
at a high level.
Sacrificing the core. They're like a New England or Peyton Manning's team.
They've changed the core
in
around.
Indianapolis, you get rid of these skill position players that were like a foundation that you never think would leave. And then you got new wide receivers, new running back, new O-linemen. And
Corey, that said,
roll.
you got to look at their salary cap for next year. It's a beast.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and there are going to be changes, okay? And it's going to begin with number 9. I mean, he's due at 20. I think his salary cap number next year is like 26.
Yes.
Is that right?
It is right. And again, that's the year that everybody points to that he will renegotiate that deal.
Right. He's going to have to.
It'll
He's
work
gonna have
good
to,
for
and he'll add
Breeze,
years
though.
on.
No, he'll lower that number.
That cap
he'll
number.
get more money guaranteed up front.
Agreed.
And he'll be under contract till he's 43.
Right.
And he'll never see that time.
Right.
And
Agreed.
That kind of
Agreed.
deal.
Again, when you look at it as a whole, when you talk about getting younger, I've said this, and Brian, I think you guys would agree. They didn't realize they had these young players, these undrafted free agents. Last year they were talking Smith and Vilma and Harper and Jenkins, and they were looking at that the old guard's still there. It was by accident that they found these young guys, and because of the injuries, wow, all of a sudden, new coach, new eyes, speed on the field, they got younger. They got to do that on the offensive side now. We're seeing that transition with the wide receiver position right now. You got to start doing that along that offensive line as well, because they are aging, and as they age, again, their salaries go up as well.
Right. I mean, you look at both guards fit that bill exactly. They've got Zach Strief on the right side. They've got Armstead on the left side. He's a young guy. Zach's now in his 8th year, I believe. So, But you know what? They've positioned themselves well. Jimmy Graham's under contract for a long time, making a lot of money. Marcus Colston is the guy. Personally, I think this is his last year in New Orleans. Just I do. And you bring in Brandon Cooks, and the way that they've done their running backs by committee. They've got young guys. They've got proven older guys. They're. You just got to keep 9 upright and healthy.
Yes.
And you can look at a couple years down the road that this team should be competing.
That's where I think Peyton's such a strong coach. I think a lot of coaches.
And Mickey Loomis, please don't leave Mickey out of this.
No,
I know,
right.
seriously, honest to God, don't.
But I don't think he's the big football evaluator guy like Peyton.
But
I'll tell you what.
Definitely that. He's the best at that.
They do a good job of watching their money and making cohesive, or they collaborate well together.
Well, he said today there is a plan for every year going forward. They're looking 2-3 years down the line.
And I think that's
on
why
that cap.
that's what the point I was about to make. I think I know this is a small market club, and there are some restrictions. They're not New York or someone that's going to go get all these big players at every key position, but It is the NFL. There are only 32 teams. That most teams still go by the blueprint of let's get a bell cow running back, let's get an all-pro wide receiver, let's get an all-pro lineman here, an all-pro lineman there. Peyton just plugs in guys. It's been running back by committee. I think you could say, at best, it's sort of a mediocre group of running backs. Wide receivers by committee, a mediocre group. O-line's almost been a liability some years. But just Peyton's scheme, knowing Drew Brees' strengths, avoiding any of his weaknesses, and I think we could go play for the Saints with Brees in that offense. I mean, it's unbelievable how you don't need an all-pro wide receiver, an all-pro running back, and they put up, prolific numbers every year with that offense.
It is the system. I would agree with that. But I think it was proven last year that they were aging. And I think that's a lot of reasons why you saw corners taking on Jimmy Graham. This year, you've got a situation where you're younger, you're faster. The question is, can they get off the jam? Are they strong enough to get off the jam? And then the other point of that is, again, the ability to protect Drew Brees up the middle. Those were the two Achilles heels for this offense last year. They've tried to make that transition in the draft and in free agency. Let's see if it works.
Maybe Robinson pounds it a little up the middle, and they get that physical running game going. Like
Kaare Robinson showed a lot toward the end of the season last season, and I just think it's going to be a perfect blend, with their running backs, like it has been recently anyway. I think when we were together on the show, your radio show the other day, I brought up the fact that one of the really a courageous move that Peyton probably hasn't received enough credit for, in my opinion, was when they made the switch at left tackle at a very critical juncture of the season.
That was brave.
And you know what? All that did was kind of set the wheels in motion for going into the off season. Now you know what? We can sustain a good offense with a young guy at left tackle. We're done with Charles Brown.
Right.
So you can move on. I mean, it was a brilliant move.
Yeah,
okay, it really was.
It really was.
And then look, here's another guy You've got Victor Butler, right? Okay, there's a free agent, a guy with a red shirt.
That's a new guy this
He's a new guy.
Yeah,
he's a new free agent,
And he's playing for a contract.
right?
Yeah, that's great. He's like your fourth or fifth linebacker right now.
Right.
Last year you brought him in as like a starter.
Right.
So that's good.
Good moves. That's why I tell you what, Mickey Loomis, Kai, and all those guys on the football operations side. They're a good group.
Yeah, two things I noticed about the Saints and the NFL. I think the NFL, there are 32 teams. There's only about a dozen or so good general managers and about a dozen or so good head coaches, and it's amazing. You think out of all the colleges and high schools, it'd be a pool of great coaches. Peyton he isn't some like dumb meathead coach. He's like a cutting-edge smart coach, and he really seems to understand the league better than a lot of other coaches. Harbaugh's good at it, but I think Peyton and the scouts and you mentioned Loomis with the cap and the money, they're cutting edge. They understand the NFL inside and out. Peyton's like 50, old enough where he's experienced, but young enough where he's, still gets it. They're
Corey,
pretty amazing.
If you think about the blueprint for success, it starts in the building, starts on the staff. If you get a player's coach, okay, you get a football operations group that can determine good and bad personnel, and they've got guts.
Yes.
Okay, they're not afraid to make hard, tough decisions, and they've stayed the course almost in every year that I can think of. Do they miss on players? Yeah, they miss. Everybody misses on players.
Low percentage compared to most teams.
They really do understand the way this game is played right now.
Yep,
And what I would add to that? They're the perfect combination. Obviously, when you look at Peyton, he is the guy, understands the personnel end of it, knows what he wants for his team. And you got a guy in Mickey Loomis who understands his place as well.
Yeah.
I'm the capologist. I'm the ear for Peyton. He tells me what we need. We try to go out there and get it. So, again, they're working together. You don't have two guys with strong personalities who are going against each other. You got two guys that are working in conjunction with each other.
You remember the period of time there for like the 15 months where Peyton was trying to rework he hadn't signed his deal and all that, and then there was that clause where I'm only here if Loomis
is around, right?
I don't think that was so much like Jim Mora going, I'm only here if Finks is here.
Right.
That would be because the buck stops with him. He handles all the crap. He's the general manager. I get to coach. What Peyton was saying was, I'm the general manager. I run the team. This guy, who is, quote, my boss, he knows his place with me. We work together perfectly.
Right.
Have you ever heard Loomis go, we acquired this corner because I knew he could shut down and he's a good cover guy? Loomis never mentions personnel, rarely even pats himself on the back like, got the guy under a cap.
He'll say we.
Oh, totally. He's very humble, to be honest. Where,
You know, and
I mean,
that's-
I'm Mickey Loomis. I'd probably be more of a let me get in front of the camera and act like I did something that Peyton really did.
Well, that's why when there was that the rumors of Peyton going to Dallas, please, could you imagine? Now here's a guy that's got it. He's in a perfect football position here in New Orleans. Okay, he's got an owner who pretty much gives them what they want, stays out of their way, and he's got a great relationship with the GM. They're on the same page. You go to Dallas, it is not that way at all.
No.
Okay, so, you know, come on.
That's why it never made
this guy,
sense.
I say this guy, Peyton, stays in New Orleans as long as he's coaching in the NFL. Okay.
Let's head to the phone lines. 866-3200. Let's go to Evan. Evan, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Okay, I think Evan is gone. Let's move on then.
Another Johnson.
Okay, we've got
editorial when I was growing up.
Evan, won't you start over? We didn't catch the first part of that. Go ahead.
I said Corey Johnson doing editorials on Channel 26. When I was growing up, they had another Johnson doing editorials on the news every night.
Highly intellectual one that was well read and, you know, is a little different.
A great legend and sorely missed in this town. Brian Allee Walsh, you should be back on the radio, my friend.
Thank you.
I mean, that
wish.
show you in 4K had in the morning was awesome. Y'all
Thank you,
doing
Evan.
great. This show is awesome tonight.
I like that too.
Yes.
I got a question about Jarvis Bird. I heard on the news tonight that he may be put on the PUP list. Fans have been worried about that so-called minor back surgery he had. Do y'all have any scoop on that? And I'm going to hang up and listen.
Evan, thanks for holding.
That
and
is,
thanks
it
for the
looks
call.
like he's heading to the PUP list. Brian, what do you know about the back surgery? Was that a shock to the Saints, or they expected this to have to go down?
I can't speak. You know, I don't have any direct knowledge. Okay, but look, here's a guy. He's a big investment. All right, this was a volunteer. I don't think
$56 million?
54 million, I believe. Okay, 9. I mean, it is July 24th. Okay, you want your best players ready to answer the bell. Look, if he's limited, even if he's on PUP, okay, for a while, don't be concerned. Now, if he stays there, if it lingers, okay, then there's concern. But gentlemen, it's they haven't even put on pads yet, so I'm not worried about it yet. Okay, I'm not worried about it. 3 weeks from now, if he hasn't shown or if he hasn't gotten on the field, then maybe there's
Then it's a
reason for concern.
Corey, you're a big golf guy. Coach Rick Gailey was on this program about 3 weeks ago, and he said it was the same exact surgery that Tiger Woods had. And we've seen Tiger kind of struggle a little bit trying to get back. You saw him at the Open struggling a little bit just this past weekend. So there is a period of adjustment trying to get back from that type of injury.
Well, it's funny. When you said the Tiger Woods thing, I was like, oh, wow, that's a right away, I was like, that's a plus. Because golf's different. I mean, it's mental. It's going to take Tiger Woods a little while, even for great Tiger Woods. But he is saying he's pain-free, swinging hard in the rough, not feeling the shocking pain down his leg. So if it's that, then I'm going with Brian. It seems like things are just started. Let's see where this goes, and probably in a few weeks he'll be back out there. But yeah, if it's like an Eric Gordon lingering injury type thing,
that's when there's concern.
Right. But that's a great acquisition. Another bold move. I mean,
absolutely.
Peyton just comes in. Okay, 2 safeties that have contributed a lot to this team, including Super Bowl.
Right.
You know,
but had their flaws.
Oh, of course, they were both are tweeners.
Right.
Well, you know, Harper was a too slow to play safety, too small to play linebacker, and you know Malcolm Jenkins too quick for safety, too small for safety. You know, but I mean not quick enough for corner.
Right.
So they're both tweener players, but they jettisoned both of them. They're going with the. You mentioned Victor Butler. Vaccaro's sort of just coming into like the second half of year 1. He was injured last year, and he's already a stud. And then they get Bird, so that's what an upgraded safety potential.
You know, we talk about you know, and I guess if your viewers listening to us we're going, well, this team should win the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, they're in a conference that's got some stud teams.
They do.
And this team does have some good question marks going into camp. We got to be honest about that.
But on paper, I think they're as good as anybody, with as good a chance as anybody in the NFC.
I would definitely not say that. I think.
Who would you think?
I
has
think
a
San
better
Francisco and Seattle clearly have a better chance. Seattle, San Francisco. I would say Denver with the improvements they've made, and then.
So you're saying AFC as well?
Well, yeah. Those three teams I think are in their own tier. I think the Saints fall into the next three, which is Green Bay, New England, and the Saints. I still think Seattle and the Niners are definitely more physical than the Saints. I think the Niners and Seattle have a better chance of coming into the Dome in the playoffs and winning, clearly, than the Saints going to Seattle or San Fran and winning.
Well,
what's your take on that?
Well, much has been made of that, and that is something that you can't. They hope that they fixed.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do. I think they recognize
players,
it.
Okay, that they need to. If you're going to fight the schoolyard bully, you better come armed. Bird gives them a better chance.
I agree.
Certainly, Vaccaro gives them a great chance. Those two guys in the back end. Healthy Butler gives them a better chance. Jimmy Graham, healthy. Look, Jimmy Graham has plantar fasciitis, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All last year.
I am told that is one of the worst injuries. It is one of the most painful injuries
when you get out of bed in the
have.
morning, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
You cannot walk. I had it for a while, and believe me, it is a painful injury.
But the thing that I was most surprised by against the physical teams is the Saints' inability to get off the line of scrimmage at the receiver position. Okay, Brandon Cooks, he doesn't have to be physical. You just can't touch him.
Right.
And you put him in motion, you are not going to find him. So that gives you a big plus there. Now everybody else is the same. Okay, Jimmy Graham's still the same. They've got to show that they can win consistently on the road, and they can play physical against those teams.
They're still a finesse team.
Right. Well, but I think they've gotten a little bit more physical on defense.
Definitely.
Okay?
On offense, too.
And I think offensively, they've gotten quicker, which is what they needed to do with the wide receiver position. Lance Moore was getting a little bit long in the tooth. You mentioned about Colston. Again, you hope Nick Toon will emerge. Kenny Stills another year. You're hoping that Joe Morgan can be that speed guy. And then all of a sudden, as I mentioned earlier in the program, Jimmy Graham's now being covered by a safety or a linebacker.
Right.
Because you can't afford to move that corner on him. And you're in a different situation. And the ability for Cooks to be able to move that defensive, that safety and that linebacker to open up holes within the offense.
I think this O-line's been overrated a long time on this Saints team. I think it's been a liability for some seasons, including last. I think Armstead's going to be a really good tackle. Like, this is a special talent. And so I think their left tackle problem solved, where it's sort of been a mystery. I'm not saying this guy's going to the Pro Bowl, but I don't think it'll be a negative. And then Goodwin is an upgraded center. Since he left, it's been like 3 players in a row where they've kept downgrading to this CFL guy they had the last few years. Now they've got a legitimate center again, and Nolito's the future. So I think the O-line goes from a liability to, at worst, neutral, and maybe even slightly a force, a little bit, a positive. And that way, I think Peyton can open up more plays on the playbook. Breeze can do more. I think right now, Peyton and Breeze know the limitations of that O-line and had to work around it.
Especially
now, if it's a neutral or even positive O-line, they can open up every play and really make the offense even more diverse, which is a frightening thought.
Especially with De La Puente at center. Brian, I'd like you to do you agree with Corey? The Saints in that second tier, or are they, as I've said, I think on paper they have as good a chance as anybody to be in Super Bowl 49 in Arizona?
Well, there's a couple answers to the question. I do think they're on a second tier. Okay, I don't think they're in that first tier
with the Niners and Seattle.
Okay, I really don't. Okay, but are they capable? Absolutely, they're capable. This is a real long season, and it's that old cliche. It's not a sprint, right? It's true, and this club still has to work some pieces in. It's going to need a full season, but as long as you've got number 9. And he's got playmakers again, and there are some holes to fill. I like what Rob Ryan has done on defense. There is no reason that this club can't be playing for the NFC Championship.
I love the long season comment, because I think right now on paper, Seattle, San Fran, they're 12, 13 win
look,
teams.
and how
right?
many times has that favorite gone on and
That's
delivered?
what I was about to say.
Okay,
So we all agree they're both
yeah.
12, 13 win teams on paper, San Fran, Seattle. You think both are winning 12 and 13? I'd bet against
Right.
that all day long that one of them doesn't. One's going to win 10 or 11. There's going to be an injury or it's a long season. I think Brian's right.
Let's head to the phone lines. Blaze is from Chalmette. Blaze, welcome. You're an Inside New Orleans Sports.
Man, this is incredible listening to you guys. I was just channel surfing, to be honest with you. Corey, man, I miss you from the other station. I'm not going to mention it. Somebody said something, I don't know which one of you guys said it, but Lance Moore. Is Lance Moore now with Washington?
Pittsburgh.
And or is he still with the Saints? Because somebody said he was long in the tooth. Is he still with the Saints? Or
He's with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He signed a free agent contract after he was released.
Oh, okay.
Is he going to pull a Devery Henderson and a Meacham and be cut?
You were such a good guy. You would put the gym shorts over your head, and you would just joke around with just cutting around, always a clown and having a great time. And you always were a good sport when people would pick on you. You'd get right back on them. Thank you, Corey.
Well, Blaze, don't forget, Corey, 3 to 5 on 990 AM WGSO each and every week.
Yep.
So you can still check
What
Corey
did
out.
you pay him to call him?
Well, that's my brother.
Okay.
Blaze is actually related
That's
to me.
actually his cousin. Let's take a quick break. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Got a great panel for you tonight. Brian Allee Walsh of SportsNola.com and Corey Johnson of 990 AM WGSO. I'm Eric Asher, your host. Don't go anywhere.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.
You're watching WLAE, New Orleans Public Television. Find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is literally saving kids' lives.
It's a very special place, friendly place.
To see the kids that they're helping on a daily basis was unbelievable.
Families never receive a bill from St. Jude.
Discoveries made at St. Jude are freely shared.
The hardest cancer cases in the world go to St. Jude. We won't stop until no child dies from cancer.
Join us.
Join us
in supporting Hoops for St. Jude.
Visit stjude.org/hoops to find out how.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Each and every Thursday night, our live broadcast right here on WLAE TV starting at 6 o'clock. We have a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night here on WLAE at 10 p.m. You can also see it on Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. Our panel tonight, Corey Johnson of 990 AM WGSO, and also Brian Allee Walsh of SportsNola.com.
I know what he's going to be doing tomorrow night at 10.
Well, here's the only thing I hope. I hope the rebroadcast makes us look better. That's all I'm asking.
They do put a little squiggly thing over my face.
Will they
I
add
don't know
more hair
why.
to me or something?
Well, me too.
I've got a ton of makeup on, so don't even worry about it. Guys, John Jenkins, I think that is, you're ready to talk about Jarvis Byrd. I think that's the scariest part of the injuries coming into camp. It's a pectoral injury. He plays the nose tackle. Like Byrd, his surgery was late. He was a guy that emerged last season and played so well for this team. And I'm hopeful that he is able to turn this around. But we've seen over and over again guys that get those type of injuries that are unable to come back until the following season. Brian, I'll take you first. Your thoughts on the impact of John Jenkins? And of course, this muscle tear is a severe one for the position he plays.
I was going to say that's the thing. It's like a hamstring for a receiver. You know, for a guy that uses his arms as much and you leverage and strength and everything like that. Yeah, and you know what? If you remember when it first surfaced in the off season, it was kind of unusual how it did. It just kind of came out, and he wasn't practicing and stuff like that. I'm not saying that there's any conspiracy or anything like that, but it does make you wonder that he's not ready yet, and again, because of the position he plays. Yes. It's not a good injury. That's
and it would be
sure.
a big loss.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've got Broderick Bunkley in there, okay, and you've got other guys that can play it. And, you know, what makes their defensive line so good is the ability to rotate players.
Yes.
Okay, and he's one of those guys that you'd like on the field.
Which is amazing. I mean, they didn't have enough players like 2-3 seasons ago on the D-line. Now they're rotating players. But you're right, Brian. I mean, they got guys that can play the position. That's like a serviceable spot. They're putting just a guy in that, like Bunkley. It's not like an all-pro or at all. He's not a Pro Bowler. But he's serviceable.
Yeah, he is.
And then you got these 4 defensive ends that, and a couple of them are really outside linebacker types, like a Ricky Jackson sort of, wannabe.
In that mode.
That just pin back their ears and attack the quarterback and not really trying to stop the run. I think that's just sort of something Rob Ryan's going to have to work around. I think, eventually they wanted Jenkins to be that everyday player and Bunkley coming in as a backup.
Well, definitely is a run stuffer. I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, again, up the middle, they were solid when he was in the game. Corey, I'll take you for how good can this year's version of this D be? Another year of the defense under Rob Ryan. Guys understand what he wants to do. One of the great things about Ryan is, again, he took input from the players, which, again, that made them buy into it.
Yep.
You got an addition now of Bailey, Champ Bailey, who obviously, again, ultimately, if you can get 50% of what he was, you're going to be in a good position. We've talked about Butler, Jarris Byrd. All of a sudden, you've added some pretty good pieces to a defense that was pretty darn good last year.
No, they were okay last year. I mean, like the 90 Saints defense or the 91 Saints defense or more, those were like first, second, third, fourth in the NFL. The Saints last year were statistically fourth. Do you think that's the 4th best defense in the NFL last year at all? I mean, I don't know if that's they're like a top 10 defense last year, top 12. So I think this year the defense will be better. It'll be a more solid unit. They're going to make more plays, force more turnovers. I think it'll be a better defense than last year, but it may only be ranked like 7th or 8th or something. I don't think they're going to be the 4th ranked defense, and I think that statistic was a little misleading last year. I'm not saying the defense wasn't viable. I remember going, if Rob Ryan can make the crappiest defense in the history of the league just ranked like 18th, the Saints are going to be very good and dangerous if they can just be a viable D. He went way beyond that. My point is, I just don't think they were a powerhouse D, the 4th ranked defense. I mean, you're really a fan going, man, we had the 4th ranked defense last year. Statistically, you're right. So I think they'll be a better D, but it won't be ranked as high.
I agree with you to this. I think if you remember the year that they won the Super Bowl, the defense was 26 in the league.
Yeah, they were mediocre.
And we've seen...
They forced 39 turnovers.
Right, that's the key. Okay, points allowed and then turnovers, and that's what set that defense apart. This defense did a really good job of yielding few points last year. As the teams rushed for them. They were much better against the pass last year than they were against the run. And what I like what they have done on defense this year is they've brought in a guy in the back end who could be the second coming of Darren Sharper.
They sure hopefully will be.
He better be, okay? Because look, they had 15. Correct me, guys. They had like 15. Turnovers last year, takeaways last year.
Yep.
I think that's
right.
Okay, so that's not a good number. Okay, that's not a good number. They brought in a guy who's got great ball skills in Byrd. He's shown that at Buffalo, so that's going to improve it. I think Victor Butler is going to make a big difference. And look, they got quarterback sacks. They didn't cause any fumbles last year. They didn't strip anybody, so they're going to do that. I promise.
The best thing about the Saints defense is the Saints offense. I mean, how many times?
Well, you could say that up until last year.
Well, no, but the last few years.
I don't think that was the case last year.
The last few years, I was saying, why don't teams run the ball more on the Saints? I would run the ball. I'd watch games where teams would abandon the run. I'm like, my God, they can run on the Saints.
Right.
And they abandon the run because the offense puts up points at such a quick clip that I think offensive coordinators, they abandon their game plan.
Trying to be an arms race.
Exactly. You're not keeping up with Drew Brees and Sean Payton throwing the ball and scoring quickly. So the last few years, I would have run the ball more against the Saints because I still don't think the Saints are. What's your favorite thing, Eric? Soft like cotton?
Yeah.
I don't think they're soft like cotton out in the middle.
But I would agree with Brian. I think the offense took a step back.
I do.
No, they did.
I don't think they were scary.
As
they weren't.
I agree. I don't think they put that angst in people like they have in the past.
I think they can this year, though, with the speed they have on the field.
Yeah.
You've got some young players.
I got a question for you guys. All right, I'll take. Darren Sproles, do you think that he'll be missed by this team, this offense?
I think he can be missed, but I think it depends on how they utilize Brandon Cooks. I think that you could put him in a position that you can do the same exact thing in terms of dictating where that linebacker, where that safety is going to be, so you can open up holes on the offense with Brandon Cooks because of his speed. But the biggest thing you'll miss from him, the inside running. At times, they got very predictable with Sproles. And I think that was my biggest problem with the offense. I don't think we saw in the history of Sean Payton being here where a team was able to snuff out a screen. We saw it multiple times last
you're right,
year.
absolutely right.
You
They
know,
did.
where
They
teams
did.
really could shut their screen down.
Yep.
Whether it was Sproles, whether it was Thomas, they got too predictable with the personnel they were bringing in. I bet that they self-scouted themselves over the offseason, and that's one of the things they're going to make sure that they don't do coming into this season.
Yeah, I think Sproles will be missed, but they're going to use a few players to fill that hole. And I think Cooks touched the ball like 130 times.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
that's
you know what I want to see is I think he will be missed in the sense that if you think about some times last year where they needed a tough yard or yards, who got them? I don't think it was the guys that you would normally think of. It was Sproles.
And Sproles is my size.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he's a $1.7.
He's a tough nut. He's a lot tougher than you.
Well, yeah, a little
You know?
tougher than me. I'm not as fast, though.
No,
not as
but
fast.
that guy could get a tough yard, and
Right.
but I think
But you got a guy in Kyrie Robinson who made
I like
he's much
Kyrie.
more
I like Kyrie.
he's underrated in catching the
But
football.
Sproles, you're not really expecting him to be running up the middle, I
Right.
think.
Right.
So
Well,
that's
a lot
where he
of
had
times
the edge.
But that was where he was more
Robin.
underrated than anywhere else.
I agree.
When he
Zigzagging
came
around,
to Seattle, when he came over from San Diego, one of the things he was able to do was run inside. I don't think a lot of people realize how great of an inside runner he was.
No, Sproles is a pure football player. He's just scaled down.
Yeah. And then
he's
all right,
small.
so let's go. The three guys that they're going to turn and hand the ball to. I'm not counting Traverse Cadet in that.
Sure.
Okay, you got Ingram, you've got Pierre. I call him PT23,
Right.
and then you've got Kyrie Robinson. Okay. Mark Ingram. I'm not saying anything that nobody else knows about. Okay. It was a brilliant move by them not to pick up
Brilliant.
his fifth year
Contract year.
And you know
Right.
what though? I say brilliant.
Make him
it was
hungry.
the right decision.
Yes, it was.
Okay, because one, now he's playing for a contract. Now you may lose him,
Yes.
okay, but that only means that he's had a good productive year this year.
That's right.
And I got a feeling that even if he goes out, into greener pastures, I think he's still going to give this team a shot.
Oh, no, you're right.
Okay?
He's going to. I think he's
going to give him a chance. So I
110%.
think it's real good. Now he needs to have a good year though. He does need to have.
Yeah, you don't know if this is a real pick or not.
Right.
I agree.
Let's go to the phone lines. Earl is from Madisonville. Earl, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Hey, guys. Great show. First of all, Brian and Phil Johnson are first ballot Hall of Famers. Enjoy your show, Eric. And Eric, I really appreciate your honesty when it comes to local politics. I'm not going to mention any names.
Thank you.
But my only question is, guys, what do you think we're going to do with Mark Ingram? I'm just kind of wondering what kind of contract he might have, or I know we got a stable of running back. So if you would address that question, I'd appreciate it, and I will hang up and listen to your
I would
response.
love to ask Nick Saban why Mark Ingram started in front of Trent Richardson. Is it just simply he was there first? He's a proven guy. Richardson and him were equal, but since he was a year older, he didn't surpass him. I mean, I always looked at Mark Ingram he won the Heisman, but Trent Richardson to me was like special in it and definitely going to make it in the NFL. I often question if Ingram would be an NFL player. So Saban, I'd love to hear his reasoning.
Well,
on that.
what's your thoughts on Ingram as Earl had asked?
Earl, yeah.
What do you think? What do you think of? I mean, look, what I love is what you mentioned. It's a contract year. He's playing for his next contract.
Yeah, that was old Jim Finks
he's going to
type
give everything he can. What do you think happens with him?
I don't know. I think Brian said it best just a second ago. If you're getting the best out of the guy, he's going to give 110%. I don't know if he's an NFL running back or not, so we're going to find out this year. At least you're getting 110%. If he makes it, maybe you sign him, you jettison, he goes somewhere else. Running back a committee, it doesn't matter. They'll get another one. I don't think it's a big deal. The biggest down part, I guess, is, we're mentioning how well Sean Payton hits, and you're like, sometimes they don't hit. This would be a not hitting. Every time they've moved up in the draft, they've not hit. The Georgia,
they've reached.
Yeah, they've reached, and it didn't work.
I agree with you, Corey. I didn't like the pick then, and I'll tell you why. I just thought it was being too greedy. What happened was, if you remember the year before, they went into the playoffs.
They got
and
decimated.
they were decimated.
Yes.
They were running.
They pulled the guy off the street.
They were. They pulled guys off the street.
And they got a chance to
that
get.
guy was pretty good.
They got a chance to get, a Heisman Trophy guy from 2 years earlier.
Right.
So I do understand. I just didn't think they needed to do that.
No,
okay?
I agree. And they went against their own philosophy.
Yeah, right.
They tried to get this home run hitter. It's like, guys, y'all have been doing it with these spot guys, and maybe you'll get Adrian Peterson or someone later in the draft or free agent that can be effective.
But I do think this. I think that Mark understands where he is. None of us on this panel would have picked up that fifth-year option. So I say it was brilliant. I'm going to scale back on that. It was a good business decision is what it was. It wasn't anything that nobody else would have done, because you're not going to give that guy, promise him $5 million in 215. Okay?
Is he a better running back in another system where he gets the ball fed to him?
Could be. If you ask him, he is. If you ask him, he is. But that's like any back.
Right.
But look, these guys have done a great job of maximizing the running back by committee approach.
Yep.
They've done a great job. They haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher since 06 with Deuce. And all they've done is have the 8 best years in franchise history.
And some of the most prolific offenses in NFL history.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
So,
I think it's up in the air. I think it's on him whether he's going to perform. I also think it also comes down to the guy in front of him. If Kaare Robinson is that bell cow back, it's going to take away carries from Mark Ingram.
And look, and you know what? They play the guy who's going to give them the best chance to win. That's what I like about this group, too.
And they got to be, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, less predictable when they start to try to run the football with the running backs that they bring in.
Mark Ingram would have a better chance if Les Miles was the head coach. He'll play every running back on the roster.
Not now that Fournette's up there. He may not. That's for
maybe
sure.
Not. Yeah.
Tony is in Gretna. Tony, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports.
Thanks, guys, for taking my call and joining the show this afternoon. Got a quick question. First, my question is about Sean Payton and tight end Jimmy Graham. I heard through the rumor mill, it's only rumors, speculation on the street, that the relationship is strained because Jimmy Graham and his agent, Jimmy Sexton, went ahead with that appeal versus whether he was a tight end or receiver. And it comes from a pretty reliable source that talks to some of the Saints assistant coaches. I won't mention any names. And the comment was passed, and it's out there on the streets now, that Sean Payton says he's going to make somebody else a star on the team. I think that's just in pure frustration and anger if Payton said that to the reliable source, because Jimmy Graham is a star. Who else is he going to pass the ball to? But anyway, I also want to go ahead and hang up and listen to the comments from you guys on the panel about what I just mentioned, and I also want to hit on what you guys were talking about before I got on the line with you about Mark Ingram. I think Mark Ingram was a great college football player and a great system with Nick Saban. I agree with Corey. Is he an NFL running back? So far, he hasn't proven to me that he is an NFL running back. But we'll see this year. I think Mark Ingram is a player that shows up every week, probably practices hard, but somebody needs to work with him. From somebody that played sports, in high school, I did not go to college, I think what I see on TV as an armchair quarterback, Mark Ingram is a beast. He's a built guy. He's a big fella. He does not let the hole develop. But before, he needs to let the play develop in a hole open. He just wants to pile it right up the middle. I think he would be a much better running back if he lets things develop before he hits the hole.
Tony, thanks for the phone call. I think we saw that last year, the lack of vision. They changed the way they used Mark Ingram. They used him more off tackle toward the end of the season, where he didn't have to wait for that hole to open up in the middle of the line. As far as Jimmy Graham goes, 40 million reasons on why Jimmy Graham would not have a problem with Sean Payton. But he did address that in his press conference today, talking about how they couldn't really talk, but ultimately, that there wasn't really any hard feelings between Graham and the team, that this was just business. Brian, you've been around a lot of these. Your thoughts?
Look, it is business. Now, it's unprecedented, though, that you have a hearing where your head coach has to go up and say, he's a tight end,
right?
Okay, when the player is ultimately, obviously trying to sell himself as a wide receiver. It's never happened before, so that's they touched on new territory there. Would it bother me? Yes, it would bother me. Okay, but you know what? I think Jimmy Graham understands his position on this team and the abilities that he has and what this team has allowed him to do, and he's become a player that I'm sure he never imagined, okay, in a four-year period, 3-year period, 4-year period. And so, he's got to be thankful. On the other hand, Sean Payton's got to be careful too. You're dealing with human nature,
Right.
you're dealing with egos. And look, Sean Payton is a player's coach. Jimmy Graham wants to help this team win. And there's 40 million reasons why they're going to come together. Yeah. I can't think, who was the gentleman that just called?
Tony.
Don't listen to the stuff on the street. I don't believe your sources from the assistant coaches, okay? This is not an issue, in my opinion. It's not an issue.
I agree it's not an issue. I don't know if I don't believe the coach or not. I'm not saying I do believe it. I'm not saying it's a definitive not believe it. Today, Sean Payton, press conference, politically correct stuff. They mentioned Jimmy Graham, the contract, happy to have him. Good for us, good for Jimmy, all that. Payton is a competitor, and you can address this more, Brian. I mean, these super competitive coaches, unlike a newspaper journalist who has to be objective, that's part of your job. Talk show hosts, Eric and I, we don't really go right wing or left wing. We try to be kind of objective. That's probably our forte. These hyper competitive coaches, they don't have to be fair and objective inside the confines of the locker room. So I think, that SOB went and got their appeal in the damn ruling now. I could see Payton saying that, and some coach may be repeating it possibly, but I think it's probably a hypocritical statement, meaning like a few days later, Payton probably has no problem with it. They're just fierce competitors. Whatever they feel like saying and however they want to react, that's how they react,
Well, look,
and it can be inconsistent.
Think of it this way, okay? The Saints have a business to run, all right? And I know Jimmy Sexton well enough. He understands, okay? They've got a business to run. You've got to do things that one, keep you within a salary cap, and you're looking at 53, in this case, 90 guys.
Yes.
You've got to build a football team, all right? That said, it would have been stupid for Jimmy Sexton and Jimmy Graham not to make an appeal. You're trying to get a contract.
Right.
I agree.
And you got to cover your bases.
It is strictly business.
Oh, no, I
okay?
agree
It's
with that.
strictly
I just think
business.
Payton's such a fierce competitor, I could see him in closed doors being irrational when that initially went down. And then, a day or two later, it doesn't really matter.
But Jimmy should be irrational, too.
I'll tell you this, Eric. I think Mickey Loomis got the better of Jimmy Sexton a little. I thought the bonus money would have been like 24, 25 million guaranteed.
I thought it would be
and
much
I thought
it would be more than Vernon Davis.
Exactly. Vernon Davis has the. I thought it was going to be number one.
I agree with that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But I think why that? So I think they can do another
contract when he's 31.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
3 years.
It could have been a 5-year deal. It wasn't. It was a 4-year deal.
Loomis did a pretty good job, I think, with that contract.
Considering. And again, they got it done.
Yep.
Errol is in New Orleans. Errol, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Errol, you with us? Okay, I think we've lost Errol. Errol, if you're still on the line, give us a call back. Weaknesses, strengths of this team as they go into training camp. Brian?
Well, you have to begin. We'd be remiss if you didn't begin with 9 as being a strength. Okay, people have said they think that this could be his deepest roster. I don't think there's any doubt that it is, which says something because he's had a pretty good roster. Prior to last year, he's had a pretty good roster, 9 to 10, those kind of rosters. But I do think I wonder about their depth on defense, okay? And I think there's a position there that's being overlooked. I think that other corner position opposite Keenan Lewis, maybe you guys know who's going to be the starter.
Champ Bailey's the starter.
Well, maybe.
You say it all the time,
Corey.
I don't know if I agree with that.
He could be the starter. I'm just saying.
Who's beating Champ Bailey out on that other side?
Well, all right. Well, let me ask you this: would you feel comfortable being Champ? If it's Champ Bailey, they're going after Champ Bailey every other throw.
Well, I mean, here's the deal.
But whoever they put over there,
Lewis
they're
is
going to
your
go.
number one.
Yes.
Okay.
Who? I'm sorry.
Keenan Lewis is your number one.
Right.
It's 75% of the time NFL teams are in nickel anyway. So Champ Bailey's going to be your second or third corner no matter what. He is on the field 75% of the time no matter what.
Okay, all right. So that said, and I would agree.
And they're not expecting him to be Keenan Lewis or this shut. Keenan Lewis will be the number one corner.
They'd like to line him up against the third receiver. If
or the second receiver even. I mean, Champ Bailey can still play. This guy's a super athlete.
All right, look at their
discount that.
I'm not saying that. I think he's a great acquisition. Okay, and I say he's as much going to make a difference off the field as much as he will, and maybe even more so off the field than on the field.
Yes.
But okay, if you look at that position, you've got Patrick Robinson, oft injured. You've got Corey White, oft beaten. You've got
Stanley Jean-Baptiste,
the young
rookie,
guy who's raw, and then you've
him.
got Rod Sweeting, who's unproven.
Right.
So I'm just saying that is a position. Can they have 11 wonderful positions? No, they can't. But that's a position that certainly has got some.
But I will say you're going to probably use more corners this year than you did last year with safeties, and I think that's a byproduct of having, again, better players at the position.
I think getting Raphael Bush is good, is bad.
Yeah.
And I like Trevin Wade. I know a lot of people.
That was
I
a
like
gutsy call. They could have lost in the Falcons too.
That's a double whammy.
Yeah.
Errol is back. Errol, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Errol, you with us? Okay, we've tried that twice. That's when you just got to let it go. Corey, weaknesses, strengths of this team. Weaknesses and strengths.
I think we know the strengths. Strengths, Drew Brees, obviously, Jimmy Graham. I think the offensive line is going to go from a liability to at least neutral, and it might even be a small strength. Defensively, safety, I think, is going to emerge as a strength. Defensive end appears to be a strength. Weaknesses, I still think D-tackle is a question mark. You don't know who some of your linebackers are going to be. I guess we know who two of them are going to be. I don't think the defense is the fourth-ranked defense like on paper, but I still think they're a viable defense.
How about I think the return game is certainly there's
Cooks
question
is going to be that's a nice grab with him. You knock out two birds with one
he should
stone.
help. You got Dimke and you got Shane Graham.
Right.
That battle is. I would put Graham as a front runner, but you never know.
Corey hates this, but what about backup quarterback?
A lot of people think Ryan Griffin's going to be the guy.
Ryan Griffin's going to be the guy, especially when you start looking at roster spots.
Yeah,
that's a battle there at least, at the very least, right?
Right. I would think so. Their return game though that hurt them last year too, or lack thereof a return game last year. That's got to pick it up. Of all the three phases of football that we all know about, that's the one that's got to come the farthest, in my opinion. Than
Eric,
the other
I'm going to
two.
tune in down the dial and check out that intense second-string quarterback battle.
It will be an intense battle.
If we're worried about that, we can put the season
You're right.
in the
You laugh about
dumpster.
that now, but you never know.
We've been lucky.
Yep.
Number 9's been upright the entire time he's been here.
Hey, nobody's mentioned center in the nest. Really.
No, that's a huge battle.
Come on.
Well, I think it's like Bailey. I don't think it's a huge battle. I think
you think it's Goodwin?
For sure. And then Lolito will come in, maybe play a little, and be the guy next year. But I think Bailey's a starter, and I think Goodwin's your starter. So.
I would say I hope Goodwin is the starter. Okay, I would hope that means that
let me
you've
say
got
this.
Lolito as a swing guy.
This club has done as good a job as any of bringing in either journeyman or unheralded players and gotten great mileage out of them. We've seen that over the last.
Where's Lolito and the other guy from? What college is that?
Grand Valley State.
Jeez,
right,
come on, please.
So look, I suspect that they're going to get the same kind of work ethic and performance out of that position. I agree with you guys. Could be Johnny Goodwin.
Right, guys, we're out of time. Thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Always
Brian
a
Allee
pleasure.
Walsh of SportsNolan.com, Corey Johnson of WGSO 990 AM, 3 to 5 each and every weekday on 990 AM WGSO. Thanks for tuning in to Inside New Orleans Sports. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night at 10 o'clock here on WLAE TV and also on Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. Don't forget, you can always catch me on the radio on 990 AM WGSO weekdays, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. You can always check out my podcast at ericasher.com. And if you missed any of the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports, you can check those out at ericasher.com as well. Special thanks to our guests, Brian Allee Walsh and Corey Johnson. Also to the WLAE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Donson, Donovan Joseph, Kenny Juneau, and my director, William Hill. My name is Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week on Inside New Orleans Sports. Have a great evening.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.